This is my J-Tube downdraft rocket stove. I built this about 4 years ago, I guess. It's made out of reclaimed parts. The burn chamber is 4-inch, and that feeds into a piece of 3.5-inch well pipe inside that propane tank. At the bottom I have a ammo can and a steel box. The burn chamber, most people put them in vermiculite. I actually built this one. The burn chamber surrounded by kitty litter, just straight clay, you know, no fragrance or anything, just straight clay kitty litter. It was the only dry thing, absolutely dry thing I could find at the time, so that's what I used, and it seems to be doing all right. I was just going to fill it with dirt, but I figured it would steam out for a long time. And it's probably about 4 or 5 years ago I built this thing. Also got this fan up on top, which helps blow some of the heat around. Got that working off this old rheostat here. Helps blow some of the heat down. I also run this stove on pellets. Mostly stuff that I find. This is the stuff you really should be running in a rocket stove. You know, round pieces, something that will actually feed in there. It's pretty easy to find stuff because you can use stuff that other people aren't even thinking about using. Like, you know, who would be burning these in their regular wood stove? But they last a long time in this style stove because of how efficient they are. Now, if you look in there, the fire's going that way. These things are pretty interesting. This box also is the air inlet for when I run it on pellets. This is my pellet feeder here. 2 Ford hubcaps with a thing, and that sits on the box tubing there. And then I fill this with pellets. That's the beast. In hindsight, anybody that's building these stoves, you really should make the feed tube vertical. It really helps a lot. I don't know why this one's on an angle. I didn't really know what was going on at the time. This was the first one that I built. I might come in and actually modify it, but I do want to build a 6-inch stove to replace this with, because on the really cold days, you know, this 4-inch stove, it's fine if you keep the place locked up, but if you have to open the doors and let the heat out, it takes forever for it to build back up. So, what are we at? Almost 300. I'll turn my fan back on in a minute here. And another thing I want to say about these stoves, if you're going to build one, build yourself a clean out on the back. Like if you look here, I have a disc. I'm using cardboard as a gasket. It's worked. I mean, I replace it anytime I have to really take this off. Basically, you can uncap this from the back, and you really should start a small fire in there when you first start your stove to help the draft get going. But a trick that I found out is, if you see this little piece of wood here, there's a hole drilled there. And what I'll do is I'll spray a little bit of lighter fluid in there. All right. I'll spray a little bit of lighter fluid in there, and then I'll light that before I start lighting this side of the burn chamber. And that helps induce the draft on the exhaust, and it helps the smoke to get in and up the riser pipe and then back down. It really helps with keeping smoke from coming in when you first start the fire. Couple tips. You really got to play with them to learn about these things. They're really interesting, that's for sure. I have another one that I'll have to make a video on later. It's in my greenhouse. That one's a boiler. Not a boiler, but I have a water tank attached to it that goes through convection and transfers the heat around. Well, that's it. That's my downdraft J-tube rocket stove, version 1. I have a couple other versions. Alright guys.